adjust. I'm taller than everyone else that's been up here. I've got my medal on. I want everyone to see. I'm so proud to be here. One of the best things about the Amazing Race is the involvement in the diabetic community that I've been fortunate to experience afterwards. And I just have to start by saying how amazing it feels to be in a room with so many people that are passionate about finding a cure. So I just want to give one last round of applause to everybody in here. It's what you guys do that is truly amazing. But I will talk about The Amazing Race. So The Amazing Race is a reality TV show in which teams of two travel around the entire globe doing odd challenges. I want to say some of the ones we did. It's almost embarrassing now that I'm back in real life. But we usually do something that's related to the local culture. We travel around, we get a series of cryptic clues. We will either have to figure out where we're going, how to get there. Once we're there, it may be a puzzle or a physical challenge. Anything from rafting, biking, climbing, running, riding bikes, to solving puzzles, bungee jumping, river rafting, eating sheep's heads. Nothing is off limits. So we traveled by gondola, rickshaw, taxi, train, boat, bicycle, helicopter, jeeps, rental cars in England, where I was driving a stick shift car on the opposite side of the road. Nearly killed us in the first leg of the race, but we made it through somehow. They really are strict about what you can bring with you. So we do the whole thing with a backpack. And I don't know about you ladies in here, I take more than a backpack for a weekender. They don't tell you what to bring, but I know from watching the show that it usually involves a very hot climate in some sort of a desert, and a very cold climate, in our case, the Arctic Circle. So one backpack, okay, that's the first challenge. How are you going to fit everything you want to wear into a backpack? I'd never been on TV before. I hear the viewership is about 12 million per episode. I want my outfit to be kind of cute as well as functional. I had to give up the cute part because the functional had to take precedence. Then I started to realize, well, how am I going to fit a month's worth of diabetes supplies in a backpack and have any room left over for anything else? So that was my first challenge. Before I even went on the show, I really had to do a lot of planning on how I was going to pack this into a backpack. And people always ask me, well, didn't production help you out? Did anybody help you with refrigerating your insulin or hold glucose or give you supplies? And the answer is no. They are very strict. There are no special agreements for anyone. So they kind of said, we'll let you come on this show with diabetes, but you have to handle everything yourself. So in my backpack, I was wearing a pump. I had a backup pump. Unfortunately, it wasn't the waterproof one that kind of slowed us up a couple times when we had to do water challenges. But I also had glucose tablets, glucagon, the glucose gels. I had a lot of the sports beans. I had power bars, syringes, batteries, alcohol swabs, everything you can think of. And it didn't fit. Even with no clothes at all, it didn't fit in my backpack. So then I had another problem. Okay, so I took all the pump supplies out of the packaging and put it in a Ziploc bag. I tried to take the most dense forms of sugar so I could treat. So I had to start strategizing. And poor Kat, my teammate, I also took up some room in her bag, too. I said, I had to imagine every single disaster that could happen and have something on hand to treat that disaster. Lord knows I didn't want to figure out the public health system in Bangladesh, so I was trying to keep everything on me. And in case one of us lost our backpack, too, I had to have a full set of supplies inside Kat's backpack. So packing was the first challenge and one of the biggest challenges. And if you guys watched the show, I got a little bit of flack for my hair. It got kind of crazy. I didn't bring a hairbrush. I didn't have room for it. I'm sorry. But before I left, I was kind of being a girl and talking to my boyfriend, and I said, I want to be cute on TV, this is going to be horrible. And he said, well, winning is beautiful. So I took that with me along the way, and I tried to use that. The other reason that I really wanted to go on the show was I knew it would be an excellent platform to inspire people with diabetes. I thought that there probably couldn't be a more difficult situation than going on the Amazing Race, where you're in a different time zone every day, a different climate every day. Some days you're on a train 16 hours out of the day, and the next day you may be running and swimming the entire day. They do not feed you breakfast and lunch. You're kind of on your own with no money running around the desert, so food was not going to be regular. But I said to myself, if I can do this, I can absolutely do anything. And so I wanted to go on the Amazing Race. And really, most people that live with diabetes know this already. We know that we can do anything we want. We're kind of used to it. But for people who are newly diagnosed or parents of newly diagnosed children, I think it's a very important message to get there early, that diabetes is going to offer some more challenges, but it's not going to offer any limitations if you don't let it. So that was a really important message for me to carry through the Amazing Race, and I'm really happy that I was able to. One thing we also get asked quite often is, what did you guys have that let you be the first female team to win the Amazing Race? There had been women, every single episode, there's 3 or 4 teams of women, and they'd never won. And people somehow assume, well, maybe it was your guys' medical experience. You guys are used to being sleep deprived, and you're used to working under pressure. I thought, that probably helped, but to be honest, I think being diabetic is the best preparation you can do for the Amazing Race. So for all of you guys that stood up earlier, you're going to have a leg up if you go on the Amazing Race. Every day is like an amazing race for us. We get up and we think, okay, what's going to happen today? How can I prepare for it? How can I manage the unexpected obstacles that come up? And somehow be prepared, even though you have no idea what's going to come your way. So whether it's highs or lows, or if you're like me, I have a tendency to pull my pump out at the most inopportune moments when you're not home and you don't have a backup with you or something like that. So every day you're used to sort of being this, MacGyver of diabetes, or this diabetic ninja, as I like to say sometimes. You sort of have to work magic. And I think that skill set of rolling with the punches, learning how to anticipate complications, and finding creative ways out of situations, I think that is something that we all learn living with diabetes, and that I found helped me out a lot when I was on the Amazing Race. I wrote down a few of my more funny stories I'll share with you. When we were in the Arctic Circle, we ended in Sweden, and we won that leg of the race. So we headed into Norway in first place. And that was a leg of the race where we had an opportunity to skip the whole leg and go straight to the pit stop. And you have to do an extra challenge, and if you do that challenge, you get to finish. So not only do you win, but you also get to rest, which is really valuable. So we get here and we read the clue that says, who wants to participate in a traditional Norwegian Christmas tradition? I thought this was great. We had taken a gondola up the side of a really steep mountain to get to this clue, and I'm terrified of heights, and I'm crying, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how are we getting down? Is it via parachute? Is it via bungee? And I was so happy to get this clue. I thought, oh, we're for sure going to get in the water for 5 minutes and freeze, or put a skirt on, learn a little Norwegian dance. And we get directions to a little cabin, and we pull up to this cabin, and we open the door, and it's dimly lit, and there's a guy dressed like a Viking and playing the violin, and I see a dining table. We looked at each other. Kat, my partner, has been a vegetarian for 22 years. I know that this table setting is not good news. So we sit down, and I'm sorry for any Norwegians here. That's a messed up Christmas tradition. They brought out an entire boiled sheep's head. The entire thing. And our task was to eat it. The eyes, the tongue, the skin. I'm so glad you guys already ate. It was gross, but Kat and I had said before that we're going to do whatever it takes to win this race. We took every decision out of it. Whatever comes our way, we're doing it, whether it's shaving our heads, getting a tattoo, jumping off a cliff, whatever it is. So it wasn't even an option to quit. We just did it. And being a diabetic, I kind of thought, well, here's the silver lining. I don't think there's a lot of carbs in a sheep's head. So that was one of the more memorable parts of the race. There was another time we were in Bangladesh, And it was so hot. We'd been running around, very sleep-deprived, very dehydrated, and the task was to build a rickshaw in a crowded alleyway. And Bangladesh is the most densely populated country in the entire world. And it's not very clean, and as I said, it's very hot and humid, so the conditions are not optimal. And I'm building this rickshaw, and I didn't remember to put my backpack in the shade. So it was just getting baked in the sun, and I'm building this thing, and it's taking me a while, and then my teammate finally realized, oh my gosh, your insulin, Nat. And I wasn't paying attention, to me. The only thing that mattered at this time was building this rickshaw, but that's when she went and activated my Frio pouch, which is how I kept my insulin cold, and moved our stuff into the shade. But my insulin actually spoiled during that challenge, and I was really lucky that Kat had been in the shade and that she had a spare set with her. So again, some good planning came in and saved us during that leg. And then the other story I'll share with you now, my biggest fear in life, and I don't have a lot, but one that I'm really terrified of is I have a big fear of heights. To the point where even in a parking garage, if I'm walking up the stairs that you can see through, I'm like holding on to the railing. Everyone's like, you're on the first floor. It's still scary. So when we made it to the final 3, we were overjoyed that it said, make your way back to Los Angeles. We were in Korea, and it said, make your way to LA. We thought this was a great omen. Kat and I met while training at UCLA together. So we make our way back to LA, and our first clue is we're told to go to the loading docks in Long Beach. And I don't know how many of you have ever been to those loading docks for those big oil rigs and those big ships from Europe and stuff. Those cranes that load they pull up these, these huge storage bins that are on the back of semi-trucks and load them on the boats. We had to get to the top of one of these, hundreds of feet in the air. And once we were there, we had to walk down the arm of this crane over the water. And at the end, there was a plank. And we had to walk the plank and then get dropped to a raft below. So I'm like testing my blood sugar every 5 minutes because, I'm trying to look for I can't do this, I'm low, Of course it was high because I get high when I'm really stressed. And that was the most scared I've ever been in my entire life. That moment, dangling from the edge, and then they're like, oh, hold on, cameras aren't in place, and I'm dangling here. What do you mean, hold on? I can't hold on. But I did it, and I wouldn't have done it if I didn't have a teammate with me. In that moment, $1 million was not enough to get me to go off the edge of that thing. But since Kat had gone through so much to get us to that point, I couldn't let her down. And that reminds me of diabetes a lot. Diabetes is truly a team sport. It takes a lot of care and support from your family members, from your diabetes team. I'm very close with my nurse educator, who I think made this whole thing possible for me. So the teamwork that it took to get me to do that, and the strength that team gave me to do something that I wouldn't have been able to do alone, it's the same sort of strength that anyone living with diabetes gets from their family, from their endocrinologist, from their nurse educator, that team that gives you the power to manage this every second of every day. So I really think diabetes is a team sport. And I did a little fun thing last night. I was trying to figure out how many finger pricks I've done. So I did a loose estimate. I think at this time I have pricked my finger 48,180 times. I have taken 21,900 shots. I've changed 1,322 infusion sets. That's my estimate. And I've had about 198 visits to physicians and nurse educators for my diabetes. So being here today and talking to you guys, I really do want to say that anybody with diabetes can do anything that they want. I looked up once the top fears of people in America because I wanted to make myself feel better about my fear of heights. You know what's more common than a fear of heights? Fear of needles. So everybody that does this every single day, you guys are conquering one of the biggest phobias in the entire country, and you definitely deserve this medal. So with that, I do want to say that research efforts from groups like the JDRF help us have a better life, a fuller life, a longer life, just more quality. But the need for a cure is still there. Insulin is by no means a cure, as we all know in this room, and I think that spreading awareness, educating people that diabetes is not in fact cured yet, getting money for research and getting closer to these goals such as the artificial pancreas, I think it's on the horizon. I am sure a cure is in our future, and I just feel that that day will be the day that I've truly won something amazing, when I can say that I helped be part of a search for a cure, and I know that all you guys will feel the same way. So thank you very much.